Hi, I'm going to be doing a lot of things with basically 500 grams of bread flour. Bread flour has the ability to be more elastic, so you don't want to use it in biscuits, in cakes, because you want it crumbly. But to get that bounce, it's got more protein. Now, you need, this is a raising agent yeast, dried yeast. Very easy to find, easy to store. Warm water, and the quantities for this particular flour, and most flours are about like this: 500 grams of flour and 300 mils of warm water, and about a packet, which is, I don't know how much is this. It's about a tablespoon, a very large tablespoon of dried yeast. But the first thing I do is we're going to use it in lots of little recipes, not just in making a loaf of bread. So one of the things that you need to do is to add some of this olive oil, just gently drip it in like this over the top. Just trail it in. And that helps the texture. We're not making just a loaf of bread, so you need to make it into something slightly different. Mix this in. And you can see how much it is if I take it out. In France they're all sold like this. It's about that much, you can see. It's not really that critical, providing you've got enough. Okay? Now, you add your water into the middle. And if you don't have a machine, this is part of a machine, then you basically stir it until it works. But this is a dough hook. It's a different shape to something that you're trying to put in lots of air. Lots of air have more prongs. But this is a dough hook because it represents the kneading motion. That's all. So I shall make up my dough. And I'm also going to add some of these because we're going to be making interesting things, not just a loaf of bread. This is a mixture of nuts. It's just nice to have a mixture to go and give a bit of texture. So I'm now going to let the machine do that, and then you can come back. Right, well, this is the result of kneading. As you can see, it's elastic, but you wouldn't have this effect with all-purpose flour. Okay, now the idea is to make little snacky things that you can eat on the sofa that don't end up all crumbs and a mess and sticky. So I'm going to divide it into pieces. And I'm working in this bowl and adding things to it. One of the things I'm going to add is a herby one, and then make little tiny interesting things with them. And this one is chives, because I happen to like chives, and oregano. Oregano is a good one because most people associate it with pizzas, so they've learnt to like it. Now, if you've got this, and you can do this, you can add this in. This has still got to prove and rise, so I'm adding it before that to give some of the liquid chance to go into the dried herbs. Now, you can't just leave it like this. You can add pepper. And for people who are not diabetic or high blood pressure, they can add salt. And you can make little tiny, interesting rolls out of it. Like that. I would brush them with olive oil, let them rise, about double in size. Lay them on a baking sheet like this and put them to rise. You don't want them to dry out, which is why I would cover them in olive oil at this stage. Okay, Most people add egg, but I find it sticks to my teeth when I eat it later. Not very fond of that. It looks nice because it's golden and pretty, but annoys me. So another thing you can do is take this particular mixture and take some Parmesan. Parmesan's good because it's already ground up and it is in fact a very strong cheese. So I add some of that to them. And these sort of flavourful chopped or powdered items are good. You can mix this in, and it's quite a strong smell already. Leave it in there while it proves, and then pop them in the oven. Exactly the same. All you're trying to do is to get it all the way through. And it's not that difficult. Anyone can do this. So you get flavoured little breads. Then you can break them open and eat them hot with butter. You can eat them with dips. You can do what you like, whatever it is that you think is wonderful. Or you can have them cold, filled with something like chopped up egg, mayonnaise. You can make snack foods really, really easily and cheaply. This has cost very little. Very little time. Children can do this. It's not difficult and it's a very yummy thing to be doing. Okay, so you can do as much or as little of that mixture as you want in whatever form. But I am choosing to show you just a few things that are possible. Next thing I'm going to do is take a different mixture. For those of you who, that's probably a bit small compared to the other one. There you are. For those of you who really like spicy things, you can add Tabasco. I'm now going to, let's just empty that. Now I'm going to do a different mixture. We've already got the texture because of the seeds. I'm going to tear this one off. Another popular one is to spread it out as much as possible. Now, this is grated garlic and olive oil. You probably would do better to add some salt and some pepper. Okay, now this won't incorporate quite so easily because it's not a powder. So I'm making it more like a sandwich. I'm rolling it up and then I'm just playing with it a bit. Then I'm going to cut it off with twisting motions, except it's sort of a bit of a mess and it will sort itself out in cooking. And it's also got to rise, so it'll trap a lot of things in, which otherwise it wouldn't. And for those of you who really like garlic, this is a really good one. And then there's the possibility, if you like, these sausages. Okay, so for this one, you need to take, let's open it up. And they're always wet, so I'm going to do this over a sink. These little sausages are a great standby because they last quite a while and they do extremely well in the fridge and you can use them for so many things. Now, what I'm aiming to do with this one is to spread it, rough shape, nothing important, cut in half and make it into a nice little shape like that. I leave a little end so you can see what's in them, just so that people feel they're getting something. Now that will cook and come out of the oven as a complete exciting little thing. Now if you're vegetarian, you could add cheese instead of these, No reason not to. But you've got to be careful when you take them out the oven that you don't end up hurting yourself because it's steamy or it's sticky or it burns you. That's the only problem. So I probably, when I take them out the oven, probably cut them up into little pieces for people to pick up. Okay, and now we leave those. I made more of these because I think they'll be more popular, to be honest. I think. But of course you could add all of those ingredients to a sausage mixture. Any of them at all. No one can say this is difficult. It's not, it's easy. And one more. And it's quite fun because it's a bit like plasticine, but it bounces back a bit. Now I'll show you which flour I'm using, because I have found some flours are better than others. This is the flour that I like, but of course it depends where you are. This manufacturer seems to be better. I don't know why. They are more expensive, but I find I don't end up having a problem with the stuff. It always works. So not necessarily this particular version. They do lots of versions, but the versions with the seeds in cost more, so I add my own seeds because you can buy these really cheaply. I haven't got anything else to say, Paul. But I think I'm going to do one with, you could put the mustard inside, but I don't like the mustard added too much because I find it quite dominant. I'd rather have mustard added afterwards, I think.
Okay. So how long are you going to let these proof for?
Oh, the proving, this particular mixture is only about half an hour. But you need somewhere warm. So what I did, I turned the oven on, and I got it warm, and I've turned it off. And if you allow it to dry out, then they need to rise. And if you've got a hard surface, because it's dried out, they can't. And you get cracking and you get other things. And it's just very unsuccessful. But I thought it would be nice to use up my garlic mixture, since we both love garlic so much. And of course, garlic is antiviral. It's such a good thing to have. I've got another one there, and I thought we would try that one with some Tabasco. It really depends on what you like, what your favourite flavours are. I wouldn't dream of giving a child Tabasco, for instance. But a lot of people find a bit of spice really good. I'm going to move these along a little bit to try to get them some more space. Now, with the exception of these, they're good vegetarian foods, but you could put more cheeses in them. Another thing you can do is tomato paste, tomato puree, whatever you want to call it. It's concentrated tomatoes. They're still wet, but they're very concentrated. You can add that to this mixture and you get a very good result indeed. So there's quite a lot of options. Now I'm going to do a herby one, and I'll show you how to use this. This will be quite nice to use with the sausage, I think. But you don't have to use it with the sausage. It just depends what you like. These things are really so easy to do. You're just adding flavours. That's all you're doing. You've taken 500 grams of flour and you've added a big pile of flavours, and for very little money you have got a whole variety of interesting foods. These foods will not really drop all over your canopy. They're clean. I think canopy foods should not be crumbly and difficult to eat, but small, which is what most canopy foods are. Another little technique you might like to try is adding some nuts to the outside. You can do this very simply. Put these down, put them like that, and roll. They then get toasted. If you're going to use pre-cooked ones, make certain they're ones that have been fried, not roasted dry, because roasted dry come out burnt. All right. Now put those on there. I'm going to just rub a little bit of olive oil over them. If you don't want to use all this olive oil, and some people, see that's beginning to rise and push itself open, so I'm going to turn it over, it might make it better. If you don't want to do that, make certain that you cover them with something like plastic or something to hold. I have found that the damp tea cloth trick, they seem to stick and I end up ripping everything apart. So I often don't use the techniques you're supposed to use, simply because I'm much more clumsy than I should be and I make a mess of most things. I like to reduce the skill level and the time in my cooking and get a result that everybody can like. But if I can just do a bit more olive oil. The olive oil is a nice thing to do when you're making bread because it sort of puffs up a bit where olive oil is on the interior and it helps to break up the texture. It adds moisture. Otherwise you've got to find a way of adding to dry bread an awful lot of butter, and olive oil is better for you, isn't it? And I think it tastes nice as well with herbs. So that's what I've done here, not very difficult, and there you go. Now I'm going to lay something over the top. I've got to find something. Any ideas, Paul? I'm looking for a piece of plastic of some description.
Large cling film.
Oh dear, yes I know. You can see what state my drawers are in, can't you? This is a piece of cling film. I could try that, couldn't I? But you can't put it down tight because you've got to allow room for them to rise. The first time I did it, I held it down tight and they just could only go sideways, so everything tied itself together. In fact, I've only learnt cooking by making an awful lot of mistakes. Now, this extra wide cling film, Paul bought, and he's bigger than me, so it's easier for him to use. I find it quite difficult. Okay. Now I think it's in the drawer. And people will wonder why on earth I'm trying to teach them anything when I am so incompetent, but never mind. My food comes out very tasty, and I think one needs a lot of variety because we're not all going out. So we need to do something interesting. I could put my hand in this, but I wouldn't want to keep my hand in this. That's how you can tell it's okay. A lot of the temperature will go into the plate that it's going on, and they can just sit there for the half hour. Okay, and we come back and turn the oven on. Oh, and when you turn the oven on, I suggest you take them out, turn the oven on. They'll still keep their heat for a bit. Get the heat up on your oven. I'm very lazy. This oven is always pre-programmed to 175 fan, and unless I find it doesn't work, I stick with that. Oh, well, I better turn it off now, hadn't I? Oh dear. You see? Oh dear. I'm not really a natural teacher. Okay, see you soon. Okay, well, I hope they worked. Yes. This is just over the half hour because I forgot them, but that's okay. They really have risen, but I'm going to lower the oven shelf because otherwise they will hit the top, because the air bubbles inside those will get bigger still, hopefully, with the heat. And that means they will... Right, that's on. Now, these, we'll see whether my olive oil strategy worked. Yes, it did. If they had just been wet, like with egg, they stick. I know all the programs show they don't, but they do. Okay? The fact that these are touching won't matter because you just split them open. They have actually risen nicely, haven't they? Now you can see them go in the oven and come back out, and we'll open them up. And by then, I might have made a soup, so you can have some soup with them. Would you like that, Paul?
Okay.
Yes, you would.
Sounds good.
Yes, I thought you'd say that. But you're very charming and you would say that, wouldn't you? But I want that one put square. This is the silicone paper that I use all the time. Okay, and this is just a metal tray. I like good quality metal trays, and they are quite expensive, but we picked this one up for 50 cents second hand because it's scratched, but nothing ever touches that bit. And I just rinse it off every time. It goes into a sterile oven, not a problem. It's not like you need a non-stick surface because nothing's going to stick to this. Okay, see you soon. I'm quite looking forward to these actually, especially the garlic ones. Very fond of garlic. Okay, now these are in there, the little buns. They're cooking, and I've got a tin, quite a big tin of sweet corn. I usually buy good quality sweet corn because it works better. I've chopped up 2 onions like this. I'm going to put them in here with some olive oil, and I'm going to make them very soft. Now, in my deep freeze, I constantly have homemade stock. You probably haven't got any, but if you keep watching, I'll show you how to make homemade stock, and then I freeze it in little boxes. Homemade stock, I don't buy anything clever, or it's just leftover bones from roast chicken or a roast bird, something like that. Now, this has just defrosted. It's homemade stock. And this, you can see it's still a bit frozen, but that is stock. It's just simply leftover chicken bones put into a slow cooker and cooked for about 6 hours very slowly, strained off, put through a strainer, and then just stored in little boxes, little cups, little anything. And I add it to lots of things, but you can buy stock cubes, so you're not lost. Now, I just soften the onion, probably for about 5-6 minutes, and I like to add a lot of pepper in my cooking. Not everybody does, but I do like pepper. So I probably will add pepper now. I probably won't add very much of anything else because this is high quality, very tasty sweet corn. I find the one that's Green Giant just tastes better than everyone else's. But you can still make it with anything. Right. That's a nice sizzling noise. It's not burning, but you can hear that sort of noise is what you're aiming for. It's a sort of, well, what it really is the water inside the onion being driven off and spitting very gently as it hits the olive oil, which is a form of fat. Now, if you don't want to use olive oil, you could use butter. Butter would be quite nice. that is going to produce some sort of thickening and a flavour. Most of the flavour's coming from the stock. Then I add these, soften them like this here, and then I'll zzz with my magic wand. I'll just show you that because I'm not sure that was terribly clear. This. And I'll do that all in the same pan so I don't have much washing up. And that will go with those little things in there and produce quite a nice meal. I would probably have a salad to go with those little rolls, but I haven't got any salad, so I'm not doing a salad. But this is a very instant, very quick soup, and you can see now it's colouring a little bit. It is soft, so I'm going to add my frozen stock. Actually comes out, and you can see it's turning to liquid very, very fast. There's quite a lot of flavour in there from leftovers and a couple of onions, and it's pretty good for you as well. Now, this is my tin. That actually smells of sweet corn. A lot of them don't. They smell sort of musty and horrid, but this actually smells of sweet corn. So I'm now going to drain it. Put it in. And bring it up to the boil, let it simmer, and then use this. Now, it probably is going to need a bit of thinning, and you have a choice. You can add milk at the end, more water, or creme fraiche will give it a little bit of a more acid flavour. You can do virtually anything with this, but what you're going to get is quite a creamy soup. So we'll come back when this is cooked, okay? This has had one buzz with the magic wand, and you can see it's got texture. You can put that through a sieve and get just a velvet, a really smooth, creamy soup. I've also added about 300 mils of hot water from my kettle. Oh, don't use one of these with the heat on, because you will melt your little wand. So always turn the heat off. And remember, you don't have to have homemade stock. You don't have to have chicken stock. You can use a vegetable stock cube. You can do whatever suits you. Very easy, very cheap, and it doesn't need any more flavouring than that because it's a high quality piece of sweet corn. It really is worth paying slightly more to make the soup. If you haven't got a good quality one, then you need to start thinking about adding flavours like garlic. I always add garlic. You can add a bit of this creme fraiche, and that would give it a slightly more acid taste. But I think most children would eat this, whether you are happy with the amount of lumps, but it's good for you. It's all of it is fibre, it tastes nice, and it gives texture. And I think it's silly to put it down the sink. I just think it's waste. Anyway, we're ready to serve, and I must take the thing out before it burns. Now, this is always so difficult, isn't it? I'm going to put this, well, I suppose I could put it over there. This is why it gets burnt, because I take things out of the oven and put them on there. Now, there. That was not difficult, was it? Any of it? And you have enough food there for a couple of days. So keep your soup, what you don't use, put it in a little bowl, store it in the fridge. Oh, that's not off as I thought it was. I often do this. Oh, yes, thank you. Everything's off, I think. These, you can save them. You can have them at tea with cold meats, salads. It doesn't matter. They're all cooked. They're all ready. They're tasty. And they were easy. A different way. If you can make a loaf of bread, you can make these. And it's more variety where we're all cooped up and bored. And they're easy to make. And the soup, as you saw, took what, 15 minutes. I think these were about 18 minutes in the oven. That's all. It's so easy. If you're worried that they're not cooked, then turn your oven down and cook them slightly longer. But you will find these are cooked. They are very hot and crispy and delightful. Okay, we'll eat them now.
Okay.
Because that was the point, wasn't it?